Hello everyone, and today I'm going to be giving the overview for the Warrior Elite specialization, the Paragon. These are not meant to be specific build videos, as those can change at a drop of a hat. These are supposed to go over the general profession mechanic changes and traits and utility skills. So for Paragon, we're going to start with the F skills. Of course, with all warrior classes, you have use of adrenaline. This time around with Paragon, your burst skills, your F1, will only consume 1 bar of adrenaline, not all 3. And then you gain access to your F2, F3, and F4. Biggest thing for Paragon is your F2 through F4. These are known as chants, and they scale based off of a new resource known as motivation, which is located at the very right of your F abilities and is a little hard to see if it's not built up, but once it's built up, it's pretty obvious. But the more motivation you have, the stronger these abilities get. To break it down quite simply, as these are quite large tool tips, your F2 is to increase yours and your allies' damage. Your F3 is to give them some more sustain through the use of barrier and healing. And your F4 is more of your defensive chant around you, which increases their defenses by granting them things like stability, and then also pulsing protection, resolution, and swiftness at the highest motivation levels. This entire specialization is built around building up stacks of motivation so that you can gain the most out of your chants for yourself, and also so you can share those beneficial effects to your allies. So just to go over, this is your offensive, this is your more healing support, and this is your more defense-oriented one. So motivation is extremely important, and you build motivation by utilizing your chants. Activating a chant will give you motivation, which then is consuming, so it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. You use a chant, if you have the adrenaline, you gain 4 stacks of motivation, and it uses it. You also gain motivation by using your F1 abilities. So this is why you still want to be using your F1 throughout a fight. So as you can see, I've built up a good amount of adrenaline through fighting a few creatures. I can now enter my F2 chant of action, which will pulse might and fury to myself and also allies around me, as this is a very support-focused elite specialization. And each pulse eats away at a motivation. I can double tap it, the F2, because it came off cooldown, to stay in the motivation, which also, as you might be able to have noticed, it granted me more stacks of motivation. If I didn't want to double tap it, or it was perhaps still on cooldown, but I didn't want to leave that particular chant and I wanted to build up more stacks of might. So what we can see here is go into your F2, gives you some motivation, and then into your F1, which will give you additional stacks of motivation. This came off cooldown, and we can build another, which then gets us to a maximum of around 10 if you're able to chain your chants into your F1. If you are looking to dance around the chants, that is another way of just gaining motivation. You don't have to double tap any of these or solely focus on your burst skill, but it's still pretty powerful to use. Now let's talk about the utility skills coming with the Paragon. Command abilities. Now these have an initial effect, and then after duration can pop for an echo. And these abilities have a secondary effect that will proc after an interval or after you use a burst skill. So there's still an element of on demand if you need it. We Shall Return is a simple heal for yourself and allies, and also an echo heal for yourself and allies as well. It will also remove 2 conditions. There was a little bit of beta feedback in terms of adrenaline being somewhat difficult, especially because you're using it to use your skill so often, so they have infused some adrenaline into some of the utility skills. Find their weakness. You'll strike enemies around your specific target, inflicting vulnerability and spreading vulnerability from your original target to nearby enemies. So nice vuln spreader. And then the echo will apply might to yourself and allies based on the number of enemies that you hit. Never Surrender is your stun break and defensive ability. This will grant resistance and aegis to yourself and your allies. And then after a duration will pop, granting additional resolution and regeneration. This will also stun break yourself and your allies, but if you don't have a stun break or a stun to break, it will have a reduced cooldown, so on your knees.
On your knees!
This will damage and apply conditions to enemies around you, and then after a time, it will damage and immobilize enemies again. So some of these command abilities will be shown here. There is one more utility skill that we have to cover, and that is a more support-focused defense with Brace Yourself. Brace Yourselves will apply barrier to yourself and your allies, and then an additional packet of it along with some protection.
Brace yourselves!
Very nice. This will also give you adrenaline on the initial cast and adrenaline on the echo. Finally, we have a very fun and unique elite ability. This is We Will Never Yield. This will give you and your allies a unique buff, preventing them from going below 0 health. So it's somewhat of an invincibility frame. It's not invulnerable, where you're taking absolutely no damage. You'll still receive damage, you just won't die. So if you time this correctly, it can be very powerful to prevent raid wipes or, you know, party kills, party wipes. And then on the Echo, you will gain super speed for this effect. One thing to note is that once this effect procs or ends, you will gain barrier based off of your missing health. So if you are critically injured, you'll still have a little bit of a shield to heal yourself back up, give you more time. Now let's talk about the traits that you can equip and play around with when you choose the Paragon. Of course, we'll talk about the minor traits first. You have Rally the Valiant, which is more information about the motivation to keep track of, so you can know how you gain it. You'll gain access to chants and command skills, gain motivation by using a chant, or by using a burst skill while a refrain is active. You'll gain concentration, but gain motivation when you swap weapons. So this is just an additional thing that warriors tend to do quite often, so it'll help out with your general combat flow. This can proc every 4 seconds, so essentially every single weapon swap you can gain motivation stacks, which is quite nice. And then finally, we have Unyielding Resolve. Strike and condition damage dealt to you is reduced for each point of motivation you have. And with a maximum of 10 motivation, that is some number. I did not go to school for math. And now let's talk about your minor traits. The very first one that I'm going to talk about is Call to Action. Gain motivation when you enter combat. If no refrains are active, automatically activate the refrain chant of action. This will give you 4 motivation when you enter combat, so this is quite nice if you are just wanting to start any combat situation with a refrain and motivation. I initially thought this would only be good in open world settings, but I found that this is actually still quite nice in any setting. Next, we have Calming Tongue. Chant of Recuperation removes conditions from affected allies when activated. This is quite nice, especially in the new expansion zones, because there's a lot of conditions being inflicted by enemies, which I really enjoy. Then finally, we have Liberating Liaise. Chant of Freedom grants super speed to affected allies when activated. This is your defensive chant, so super speed is even more incredible because you get to move around much faster, and movement can be so crucial in a game like Guild Wars 2. We have Strengthening Stanzas. Refrains grant bonus effects to you while they are active. So your Chant of Action will give you additional damage, Chant of Recuperation will reduce incoming damage, and Chant of Freedom will further augment your movement speed, giving you an incredible 50% increased movement speed. Invigorating Tempo will heal yourself and gain adrenaline for each point of motivation spent. This can make you quite tanky, actually, because if you are juggling a lot of motivation, this means that each pulse of a chant, be it action, recuperation, or freedom, will give you a good amount of healing and additional adrenaline to then build up into more use of your burst or chant abilities. And then next we have Reverberation. Command echoes can trigger a second time. And this means things, your echoes, specifically your utility skills, will pop their echoes twice.
March on!
Which is quite nice. Some of these effects can be quite powerful in terms of just barrier application, certain boons that you might be looking for. For the Grandmaster tier, we have Feverish Pulse. Using a chant reduces the recharge of your other chants and grants boons to affected allies. This is your capstone trait if you're looking to play that boon support role. So if you're looking to play your healing Paragon, you'll probably be taking this. And this is phenomenal. This is just really good. It is very easy access to Alacrity. And the fact that the chants will reduce the recharge of other chants means that you can chain this into itself so well and so easily, and is a really strong Grandmaster. Next, Brisk Pacing. This is actually a completely new trait that launched with the game. This is to deal increased damage based on your motivation levels. So if you're at maximum stacks of motivation and are able to juggle up and keep up high stacks of motivation, you can get quite a lot of damage. And then finally, we have Enduring Refrain. Refrain effects of chants are stronger. Gain additional motivation when you activate a chant. Now, I haven't played around with this too much. This is kind of I feel like the weakest out of the three. But this, I'm guessing, in maybe world versus world scenarios, competitive scenarios, if you're just in open world and you're looking to boost some of these chants a bit. But I personally haven't played around with this too much. The motivation stacks might be nice if you're maybe struggling to maintain higher stacks motivation, so that's nice. And as for a build that I have been running around with in open world, I'm taking a lot of Berserker stats, some Dragon stats, and then Spear and Staff to play into that Paragon fantasy. And then as for my traits, I'm taking Strength, Brave Stride, Great Fortitude, Berserker's Power, Tactics for a little bit more group support in open world, which is still extremely valuable. Don't have to take this. You can go with something a bit more damage focused, like the core profession warrior lines, like Discipline. But things like Soldier's Focus, Shrug It Off for all the conditions, and Fouling Strength, a little bit more of a combat buffer is kind of my angle with this. And then for the more damage-focused elements of Paragon, I'm going to be taking Call to Action, Strengthening Stanza, and Brisk Pacing. Funnily enough, I am currently testing a lot of this. I think Rally the Valiant is currently broken because I'm not gaining motivation stacks when I'm using my F1, even while I have a Refrain active. So I think that's currently bugged. I hope they fix that. But this is currently the build that I'm running, and it's just a lot of it's quite simple, I must say. It's a lot of just building up motivation and maintaining that motivation. And then alongside maintaining all that motivation, just weaving in my utility skills if I need stuff like buffs or additional effects like stun breaks. But it's quite fun. Also to note, you will gain your Paragon wings now when you're maintaining 7 or more stacks of motivation. So the wings are much more of an important data asset piece rather than just something that is more aesthetically pleasing on, say, like the elite skill we will never yield. Paragon is just a really fun elite specialization. I've been having a great time with it. I think that it's been very masterfully refined. Having the ability to swap between both your spear and your staff, especially with the same skins that are in the game now, is just very pleasing to me from a roleplay perspective. So I'm really enjoying that quite a lot. And yeah, I've been having a very fun time playing a more combat focused group buffer in a way. Especially with you using the spear, you can feel like you're getting a good amount of damage out on enemies. But if you're taking things like the Great Sword or other various weapons, if you're more Condi focused, you can take different weapons. You'll definitely get a little bit more out of that, I think probably from your damage numbers. But I've really been enjoying tapping into the Paragon fantasy while still in the open world, juggling good amounts of damage, self-sustain, and group support. Thank you all so very much for coming on by for this video on the Paragon. If you would like to support the channel and gain access to Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity, I have links down below in the description. Like, comment, and subscribe. I stream over on Twitch on the weekends when I'm not sick. And I will see you all in the next profession video. Bye-bye, everyone. Mwah.